The steam locomotive's whistle echoed across the dusty plains as it pulled into Millfield Station, a small depot surrounded by endless prairie and scattered wooden buildings. 25-year-old Rose Bennett stepped onto the platform, her blue traveling dress wrinkled from the long journey and her small leather satchel containing everything she owned in the world. Rose checked the telegram in her pocket one more time. "Meet Jay Harrison at Cedar Creek Station. Marriage arranged as discussed." But as she looked around the modest platform with its weathered sign reading Millfield, her heart sank with the realization that she had gotten off at the wrong stop. The mail-order bride arrangement had been made. Through a series of letters with James Harrison, a rancher in Cedar Creek who needed a wife to help manage his household and care for his aging mother. Rose, left with few options after her parents' death had left her penniless, had agreed to travel west for what she hoped would be a practical partnership that might grow into something more. Now, standing on the wrong platform with the train already disappearing into the distance, Rose felt the weight of her predicament. The next train wouldn't come through for 3 days, and she had barely enough money for food, let alone lodging. "Ma'am, you look lost," came a gentle voice behind her. Rose turned to see a man in his early 30s approaching. His brown hair tousled from the wind and his work clothes speaking of honest labor rather than prosperity. Behind him trailed a little girl of perhaps 6 years old, with bright eyes and tangled blonde hair that suggested she had been playing outside all day. "I'm Thomas Mitchell," the man said, removing his hat politely. "This is my daughter Lucy. We came to meet the train, hoping to pick up some supplies, but it looks like they weren't on board." "I'm Rose Bennett," she replied, trying to maintain her composure despite her growing panic. "I'm afraid I've gotten off at the wrong station. I was supposed to continue to Cedar Creek." Lucy stepped forward with the fearless curiosity of childhood. "Are you the lady Papa's been praying for?" Thomas flushed red and gently placed his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Lucy, you can't just ask people things like that." "But you have been praying," Lucy insisted with the logic that only children possess. "Every night you ask God to send us someone nice to be part of our family." Rose found herself touched by the child's innocent honesty and the obvious embarrassment of her father. "Lucy, that's very sweet. But I think your papa was probably praying for someone quite different from a lost traveler. Maybe God just sent you a different way than Papa expected," Lucy replied with the profound simplicity that sometimes comes from young minds. Thomas looked at Rose with growing concern as he recognized her predicament. "Miss Bennett, if you're stranded here until the next train, you're welcome to stay at our place. It's not much, but we have a spare room, and Lucy's right about one thing. We believe in helping folks when they need it." Rose hesitated, knowing she had little choice, but also recognizing the genuine kindness in this stranger's offer. "Mr. Mitchell, I couldn't impose. You don't know anything about me." "I know you're far from home and need help," Thomas replied simply. "That's enough for now." Over the following days, as Rose waited for the next train to Cedar Creek, she discovered that Thomas Mitchell was a widower trying to raise Lucy alone while managing a small farm that barely provided for their basic needs. His wife had died 2 years earlier, leaving him to navigate both fatherhood and farming with the quiet determination of someone who had no choice but to persevere. "Papa tries to braid my hair, but it never looks as nice as when Mama did it," Lucy confided to Rose on her first evening in their modest cabin. "Would you like me to try?" Rose asked, noting how the child had been studying her own carefully arranged hair with obvious admiration. As Rose gently worked out the tangles in Lucy's hair, she found herself thinking about the strange circumstances that had brought her to this small cabin instead of to the arranged marriage she had been traveling toward. "Miss Rose," Lucy said as Rose plaited her hair into neat braids, "do you think sometimes God changes our plans because he has better ideas?" "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Well, you were going somewhere else, but you ended up here with us. And Papa's been so much happier since you came, even though it's only been 2 days. Rose glanced toward the kitchen where Thomas was preparing their simple supper with more care than she imagined he usually took. She had noticed that he smiled more when she was helping with household tasks, and that he seemed to find excuses to ask her opinion about everything from Lucy's education to the best way to preserve vegetables for winter. Sometimes good things happen in unexpected ways. Rose agreed carefully. "That's what I think too," Lucy said with satisfaction. "I think God sent you to the wrong station on purpose." That evening, as Rose and Thomas sat on the small porch after Lucy had gone to bed, they talked about their respective circumstances with the kind of honesty that sometimes develops between strangers who have nothing to lose by being genuine. "Rose, can I ask you something personal?" Thomas said, whittling a small wooden horse for Lucy while they talked. "Of course. This arranged marriage you're traveling to, are you looking forward to it? Or are you doing it because you feel you have no other choice?" Rose considered her words carefully. "I suppose it's both. James Harrison seems like a decent man from his letters, and I need the security that marriage would provide. But if I'm honest, I've been terrified about marrying a complete stranger and hoping we might eventually develop some affection for each other." Thomas nodded thoughtfully. "I can understand that fear. After Mary died, I thought I'd never want to remarry. The idea of trying to build something with someone who didn't know her, didn't know Lucy, seemed impossible. And now," Thomas paused in his whittling and looked at Rose in the lamplight spilling from the cabin windows. "Now I'm thinking that maybe the most important thing isn't shared history, but shared hopes for the future." "What do you mean?" "I mean that in 3 days you've shown more genuine care for Lucy and interest in our life here than some people show in months. You've made this place feel like a home again instead of just a place where we sleep and eat." Rose felt her heart quicken as she recognized the deeper meaning in his words. "Thomas, are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that maybe Lucy's right. Maybe you ended up at the wrong station because it was actually the right place for all of us." Rose looked at this honest, hard-working man who had opened his home to a stranger, who was raising his daughter with love and patience despite obvious struggles, and who was offering her not just security but genuine partnership. "What about James Harrison? He's expecting me in Cedar Creek." "James Harrison doesn't know you yet," Thomas said gently. "He's expecting to marry a woman from letters and arrangements. But I've seen you read stories to Lucy, help with cooking, ask thoughtful questions about farming. I've seen who you really are." The next morning, Rose made a decision that would surprise everyone, including herself. Instead of boarding the train to Cedar Creek, she sent a telegram to James Harrison explaining her change of circumstances and apologizing for any inconvenience. Then she turned to Thomas, who was standing on the platform with Lucy, both of them watching her with hopeful uncertainty. "Thomas Mitchell," Rose said with the courage that comes from recognizing when something feels absolutely right, "if the offer is still open, I'd like to stay." "Really?" Lucy squealed, bouncing with excitement. "Papa, she's going to stay." "God really did answer our prayers." Thomas smiled, relief and joy evident in his expression. "Rose, are you sure? This isn't the life you planned." "Plans change," Rose replied, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. "Sometimes the most important decisions are the ones we make when life doesn't go according to our original arrangements." 6 months later, Rose Mitchell stood in the same small cabin, but now it had been expanded with a proper parlor and additional storage for the successful vegetable garden she had helped establish. Lucy had grown into a confident, well-cared-for child who never tired of telling people about how God had sent Miss Rose to the wrong train station on purpose. "You know what I realized?" Rose said to Thomas one evening as they watched Lucy play with the wooden toys he had carved for her throughout the winter. "What's that? I spent so much time worrying about ending up with the wrong person that I almost missed recognizing the right one." Thomas smiled, pulling his wife closer as they sat together on the porch they had built together that spring. "Lucy keeps saying she knew from the first day that you were supposed to be here. Children often see things more clearly than adults do," Rose observed. "They don't get distracted by plans and expectations and worry about what's supposed to happen." "Speaking of what's supposed to happen," Thomas said with a grin, "Lucy's been asking when she's going to get a little brother or sister." Rose laughed, thinking about the future they were building together step by step, day by day. "I suppose we shouldn't disappoint her. After all, She's been right about everything else so far. Sometimes the most important destinations are the ones we reach by accident, and sometimes the best relationships are the ones that develop naturally rather than through careful arrangements. Rose had learned that love at its best is built on daily choice, mutual respect, and the willingness to embrace unexpected possibilities when they reveal themselves to be better than anything we had originally planned. If this story reminded you that the most meaningful paths in life are often the unplanned ones, please give it a like and share it with someone who believes that the best adventures begin when we're brave enough to change course. Subscribe for more stories about finding love and family in unexpected places, and let us know in the comments about a time when getting lost led you to exactly where you needed to be. Sometimes the wrong station is actually the right destination.